So we got duped by the comment in the trailer where Andy Cohen said he was gonna skewer Erika and put her on the fire and turn the heat up. But we'll touch on that in a little bit later. But besides that, Erika also is held to the fire by all the ladies again in this part, and leading into the final part we'll cover next week. But we will also cover the news of the last few days of one cast member who was robbed in their home just hours after this part of the reunion aired, and cover the irony of what they talked about in this part of the reunion not being lost on me regarding that story of someone being robbed, and the theories and speculation around that story in particular, and the implications of it on the next season, season 12, which allegedly has already started production currently, and it will be filming the next several months. But before we jump into the recap and react for this third reunion part of season 11 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, for those of you who are new, I am Nick Zangl, and thank you so much for being here, and let us jump right in. So we continue this reunion, with picking up where last part left off, with Kathy and Kyle hashing out their issues after their warm and emotional embrace, which ended part 2, where Kyle is consoling Kathy, saying it is okay to cry about this regarding their mom passing and the turmoil that spawned from that and some recent events, because Kyle has stated Kathy does not show emotion publicly ever. So this is a very big deal for them. Kyle then shares she doesn't regret making the American Woman show, which was loosely based on their life growing up, because it wasn't meant with ill will towards anyone, not their mom, not her sisters, and not any of their kids. So Kyle then shares how it was a little by little reintroduction to each other and each other's lives, starting with some talks about getting together for the holidays, leading to this moment where things seem to be back to normal from before their issues started, with Kyle and Kim filming season 1 of this show, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, almost 10 plus years ago. And then on a lighter note, we learn that the lady who we met a couple times this season is named Paula, who actually works for Kathy, and it appears now we get her name shared with us somehow, even though Kathy has stated, I believe it was on Watch What Happens Live sometime during the season, that she didn't want to say Paula's name without her permission on the show, but I guess that was worked out. Andy then pivots to Garcelle forgetting her sister Carol's name on the show, and Garcelle sharing how she actually had a falling out with her sister Carol, and this situation brought up with Kathy and Kyle has shown that in a new light for her, and I'm guessing that means she wants to work it out with her sister. But we then get a quick reminder of Kathy winning the poll of favorite Richard sister on Watch What Happens Live, where Kyle says she's not jealous of Kathy, and we also learn that Kim is supportive of Kathy joining the cast. And since it appears that things are well with all three Richard sisters, we end this scene with Kyle giving us hope that all three of them will appear on screen together sometime soon for a fun sister moment. Now, all I wanted to add about the Kathy and Kyle situation for now, because we touched on this last time, was I would like to see Kathy, Kyle, and Kim appear together next season, because I think it would be fun to watch the sisterly bond now that they're in a good place and not be so heavy and so in the kind of seriousness of their lives. I think it would be great to see them all together on screen again. But while you guys are in the chat letting me know what you think, let's keep going to Crystal. So the tension turns to Crystal, our newest housewife this season, where we jump in with Crystal filling us in on one of her truths that she told during the Lake Tahoe trip at the very beginning of the season, which was her working for an escort service. And we learned she worked there right out of high school, where she clarifies that she was the one answering the phones of the number advertised in the magazines. She was not the escort herself. And Erika then shares that Crystal opening up about this early on in them meeting was a really quick way for them to connect, and why she liked her right off the bat. So next, everyone except a few girls said they would wear the ugly leather pants that Sutton labeled Crystal's pants as. And we then get a rehashing of the coat incident in Lake Tahoe, where we get confirmation by both Crystal and Sutton over what we kind of said in the beginning of the season, where it appears compounding miscommunications over those first few days where they were really meeting each other and getting to know each other early in the season led to them getting off on the wrong foot and having to overcome that. And it looks like they've overcome that since then and now are getting along. So if they both return next season, I'll be fascinated to see how their friendship dynamic changes within the group. So then we get filled in on how Crystal shared her eating disorder struggle with her mom, who we learned on the show did not learn of the eating disorder until the show aired. And it looks like Crystal had a conversation with her right before that episode aired, where Crystal shares that this was an emotional conversation between her and her mom because, as any parent would, they want things to be okay with their child. So I think that was a really brave thing for her to open up about. And clearly this is something that is common in the world, but in this industry and in this area in particular, because we've heard Kyle open up about this in her life and Lisa Rinna with her daughters. And so I think it's important to kind of destigmatize that. But then we conclude Crystal's segment, all dedicated to herself, with a reminder on Crystal's experience growing up as an immigrant or with immigrant parents and witnessing her father's fear back then of people making racist comments to them out and about, leading to Andy sharing how upset he was to learn of comments and direct messages Crystal gets to this day regarding that issue and kind of them being not very nice comments. And according to Crystal, she gets hundreds of these a day still. Now she shares she thought it wouldn't be that way because she came onto the show to give Asians more representation. And Andy and all the girls join Crystal by saying, do not let those quote unquote assholes, as Andy puts it, ruin your experience. I just clicked my button. Hold on. Ruin your experience and tarnish the good you did by sharing your culture with everyone, including the girls on the show, to which Crystal ends on a high note by saying, despite the negativity, there was so much good from the cast and viewers in reaction to what she shared on the show, which I thought was a great way to wrap this segment up. Now, I want to say first, I don't think anyone should have to endure constant hate comments designed to hurt you, which appears to be what Crystal is dealing with on social media. Unfortunately, though, when you go on a public platform like Housewives and open up about your vulnerabilities and your struggles, whether it's her eating disorder or her growing up with immigrant parents and kind of having to deal with some of the aggressive comments towards them, social media has a way of bringing out the worst in some people and use your candidness and those things that you talk about as a weapon against you to try to hurt you. So as sad as it is, the only defense really is to ignore it or don't read it, because I bet more of those commenters, or most of those commenters, I should say, would not say that to your face in real life. And so at some point, if you keep acknowledging it, you're just feeding the fire and feeding these people, which is what they want. They want a reaction out of you. Not just necessarily that they mean what they're saying. They just know it's a button of yours that you've said, if you push it, it'll trigger me. And they're going to do it because they are behind a computer screen. So I agree with the girls on it being cool to see Crystal share her culture, which is different from what we've seen on this show over the years. Even though I haven't really agreed with everything that she said or done, I thought it was really cool that she's sharing all that. So let me know what you think of that. And I don't see too many chats coming in. So as you guys are typing and thinking, I will continue on. So next part was kind of hard to watch because we know what news broke hours after this episode aired, but we'll get to that in a second. But Andy then first dives in by reading a viewer comment regarding Lisa Rinna sharing how she keeps her vintage dresses in her garage, where Dorit appears to be squirming at that thought as Andy shares that. And Andy also shares that he texted Rinna to get them out of her house immediately after seeing that episode because she is now a target for thieves. And we learn Lisa Rinna has sent them to a vintage shop. But in the next sentence, after Garcelle names Dorit best dressed of the group, Dorit has no problem sharing how everything she wears she buys at retail prices. And now I do think it is smart to buy retail instead of discount, because then you aren't controlled by the designer to promote something you wouldn't normally wear. Of course, it costs more upfront, but you retain that creative freedom to not have to be owned by the designer who wants to share or have you wear something for promotion. But this scene concludes with Crystal sharing about her Birkin bags we saw on the show, which were recommended by a friend of hers who has also allegedly bought her a few of the bags, which all the girls were jealous of that. And then Kyle shares about her favorite gift from Mauricio that was stolen in their robbery a few years ago. And of course, Kathy then gives the impression she is very normal for how wealthy she is with her namesake by sharing her best gift from her husband was a crystal shell. and her gift to him was a new sweater. So speaking of burglaries, let's get into the big news that broke on Thursday, but we learned actually happened almost less than 2 hours after this episode aired here on the West Coast Wednesday night, which was the burglary of Dorit's home in Encino, which we've seen over the course of this season very much. So it appears that just before 11 p.m. Los Angeles time Wednesday night, armed robbers broke into the schoolroom of Dorit's kids, which we saw in this season earlier when they were talking about how their quarantine has been going during the pandemic and how their school is in downstairs. And allegedly they stole $1 million plus worth of items. I'm guessing probably the most expensive stuff, maybe in her closet. And there are still details emerging, and it appears Dorit and her kids were home when this happened, but PK, her husband, was not, and he was in London away from the house. So I saw this news Thursday morning, and I immediately thought about the irony of the situation, considering we had just watched them share about all the goods that they own and all these expensive things, including Lisa Rinna moving her closet to a secure place, and we shared more about Kyle's robbery and all this stuff. So Dorit sharing how everything she wears is real, and Kyle recounting the burglary, and this happening mere hours after that segment aired. I can imagine, since they show the house on the show, there are professional criminals organized to scout these high-profile places that are easy to plan an invasion of, and maybe they were waiting for an explicit confirmation from the homeowner, meaning Dorit, of the valuables inside, and this was their chance. Now, I can't help but go into conspiracy mode with this timing of the situation. I hate that I go there, but it's part of, I can't ignore what I'm thinking. But similar to kind of the Erika situation this season, which, because the reunion part talking about this just aired, and Dorit has been rumored to be on the chopping block for season 12, which is either just starting filming now or about to start. And if she didn't have a storyline before the season started, she does now, even though she can blame the show in part for becoming a target of the burglars. But I don't want to believe that someone would stage something like this, especially if it involves their young children, for the sole purpose of holding on to relevance or staying on a reality show. But knowing how thirsty some people are for this, I would not be shocked. But I'm not going to say definitively what the reason or what's going on without any proof. But it did cross my mind. I have to share that. But any way you slice this, it sucks, but is a recipe for attention. As I've seen coverage of this already in the media, this made headlines in a lot of places. The coverage of this already outside of Dorit's house, I saw a paparazzi video of investigators showing up greeted by the paparazzi, and it looks like Lisa Rinna, Erika Girardi, Kyle Richards have shown up to the house to check on Dorit, which they were all swarmed by paparazzi as well, and what appears to me to be cameras for a TV show, i.e. The Real Housewives. So the only indication of that is a camera crew in front of the group of paparazzi is that they're getting close-up images. They're the ones in the front of kind of the paparazzi and are getting pictures of the cast coming over to see Dorit at the house. So I'm thinking they're filming something for this, and this seems like a great way to start the season from a ratings and TV show perspective, but who knows at this point. We will have to wait to see when a trailer drops for season 12 in a few months and when it starts airing what's really going on and what they filmed of this, what we're seeing right now. But something just seems off about this at the moment. So let me know what you think of this whole situation with Dorit and the irony of them sharing this story on the reunion 2 hours, not even 2 hours before she gets robbed. But as you're typing in your chat there, and I know a lot of you are probably going to be watching on the replay or listening on the replay because it is Halloween night. I know here there's people probably trick-or-treating. Hopefully they don't ring my doorbell while I'm on here. Hopefully it's not until later, or maybe no one will ring the doorbell. I know it's a football night. It's World Series could be ending tonight on baseball. There's other shows on. It's Sunday night and all these things. So I know a lot of you will be watching the replay. So thank you if you're here on the replay, if you've been here, if you're still here. So let's keep going here with Kathy Hilton back in the spotlight in the reunion, where we learn her daughters, Paris and Nikki, have come around finally to supporting their mom on the show. And she is happy also to be embraced by us, the viewers. We also get a montage of all the Kathy-isms over this season, where Kyle then shares Kathy has her mom's humor, and Andy says what we've all been kind of saying this season, on this channel at least, so far, and understanding Kim better now that we know Kathy a little better and their similarities, to which Kathy hints that Kyle may be more like them than she leads on. And we also learn that Rick, Kathy's husband, is no longer a part of the Hilton Hotel's business as part of a sale and rebrand 10 plus years ago. And what I want to say to this is this part about Rick not being involved in Hilton Hotels took me off guard at first, because the name is so synonymous with hotels and resorts. But then I remembered the family drama regarding Mauricio working for Rick's real estate company, which is Hilton Real Estate, luxury real estate, and then him leaving to start the agency, which we saw him growing on the show over the past decade, and all that causing drama in the family, which now it all makes sense that Rick isn't really involved in the hotels and the resorts part. But it just shows that even though Rick is not involved in the hotels and resorts part of it anymore, it doesn't mean they left behind the perks of the Hilton name and aren't really involved in some way. Because one example I was thinking of was the new Resorts World Las Vegas resort, I guess, in Las Vegas. I believe one of the towers there is named Paris and the other one is Conrad. Obviously Paris Hilton, Kathy's daughter, and then Conrad Hilton is Kathy's daughter, but also, or son, but also the great grandpa and grandpa of the kids. So it just makes sense. So anyways, if you don't have any other thoughts on that part, I will keep going. Okie dokie. So we are now circling back to the Erika stuff. And this time with the line from the trailer toward Erika by Andy of putting Erika on a skewer and turning up the heat, to which Erika in this scene where they're showing this more in context is saying, "Oh, I'm so ready for you," kind of in a seductive way. And prior to Andy saying this line to her, she asked him not to go too hard on her. So I'm not exactly sure what to think of this, other than we were misled in the trailer, and immediately thought when I saw this, I was like, oh gosh, did we get duped about this whole reunion and we're not going to get really that much out of this reunion? But it looks like the end of this part and next part are going to be good. But it just, when they showed it in context like that, I was like, oh, I feel like we've been duped. But anyways, we learn Erika is still keeping score on who is with her and who is against her, but she's not sharing the score quite yet because she's not through with everything going on. Kyle then speaks up, asking for Erika to try to understand the difficult position the cast was in with this situation. And Erika then brings up the Dorit, PK, Mauricio, and Kyle scene, laughing at this whole situation and how it hurt her, where then Kyle and Dorit seem to be backtracking on that scene, even though I think you can tell that they are telling more of the truth after the drinks with their spouses and with each other as close couple friends. So if I were Erika, I would believe what she saw in that scene with Kyle and Dorit and their husbands over what they are telling her at this reunion. Just the word of advice to Erika. But Garcelle then asks for clarity on why Erika did not understand their concerns about being implicated in this. And Erika says, because she knows they are not involved. But she knew they were going to be mixed up no matter what. But because they're on the show together, but if you're not involved, then you shouldn't be worried, even though it can get kind of messy. But Kathy then brings up how other franchises, excuse me one second, have had legal things go on, referencing Teresa Giudice in New Jersey. But Andy tried to differentiate the two by pointing out that in this case, there were private citizen victims of a private law firm. This was not an IRS government debt case, even though I could argue that the government case with the IRS does cover the shortcomings of a tax debt by using our tax money, everyone else. So they're both bad, in my opinion. But Erika then gets upset, saying she feels horrible for the things that Tom has done, to which Andy, Garcelle, Sutton, and Crystal say, "You have not made that very clear so far. This is the first time we are hearing you say this definitively, that I feel horrible for what Tom has done." So Erika then answers to Andy saying, "People think you are the victim. And she answers this by saying, "No, I'm not the victim. I've never said I was the victim." But then pivots to saying to Sutton, "Look, my life is in shambles," implying that she does think she is the victim, but she doesn't want to say it explicitly because it might be used against her. Now, Rinna then steps up and says she thinks Erika's Instagram feed is feeding the fire. Now, Erika then reiterates that the financials were kept at Girardi Key's law firm, implying she didn't know what was going on. The girls all say that they don't think Erika knew what was going on, but Garcelle makes a great point in saying maybe Erika didn't know what was going on because she didn't want to know because she was living this luxurious lifestyle and didn't want anything threatening that or upending that part of her life. Crystal then asks Erika, or she says, "If this was my husband doing this to me, I would be so angry towards him. Where is your anger towards Tom?" Where Erika snaps back saying, "Haven't I showed enough anger today?" Then she references a few things she said earlier in the reunion, which you saw the last few parts, where Crystal kind of shuts down because Erika kind of over talks her and kind of railroads her. But I appreciate the attempt by Crystal to hold Erika accountable, even though it fell a little flat, but I'm glad she had spoke up when she did. And I'm going to get to my reaction in 1 second, and then I'll get to your live chats. I see a few coming in. But I think it is important to remember in this Erika situation still that hindsight is 2020 when we know more details now and can look back with this revision of what happened with these more details. But I think Erika is right about even if you are implicated or mentioned, if you know you aren't involved, then there shouldn't be a problem. Sure, it's going to be inconvenient to be mentioned in all this, even though you know you're not guilty. But if you are innocent, it should be easy to put this to rest. And I wanted to point out how all of us really can be associated in some way with something we'd rather not be associated with, because there's not really much control you can have over everything. Even for us watching and talking about this show, I know some people probably look at us sideways for even giving this any attention, and we can't control that. So also in this scene, however, we get a mixed message again from Erika trying to squash talks of her being a victim while quickly pivoting to look at me and how miserable my life is and how miserable it has become. So Erika, are you a victim or are you not the victim? Because if you say, yes, I am the victim, then you would get more people on your side in believing that by saying I was a victim of Tom's shadiness just like everyone else was, and I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, and this just shows how much this guy fooled everyone and how manipulative he was, and I feel like a fool, and I want to do everything I can to remedy the situation, even if I end up having to start from scratch and have nothing. That would make more sense to me. The problem is she seems to have still some feelings and some protectiveness over Tom, to which she doesn't feel she can fully come out and say, I think he's guilty and whatnot, without thinking she's implicated, because she might have known stuff that she doesn't want to say she's known, but she's implying she knew, because how would you leave if you didn't know? Like, it's just, the whole thing is just confusing and so much, I don't want to say doublespeak, but just so much conflicting information that it's very hard for us to believe anything she says, even though some of it is probably true. Now, on the Instagram front, it's not helping her at all. And it's clear that her unwillingness to change her ways is playing out on her Instagram. And I know that in business and in life, you have to be able to pivot sometimes for your own good. But if you choose not to pivot, you have to deal with the consequences of that. And while Erika was right in saying the only thing she has to do is defend herself, she also can't control how others perceive what she's doing. And that goes for all of us. So that might be the thing she needs if she does come out of this being innocent. So before I get to your live chats, really quick, I want to mention one thing, which is before you leave, and before we check the chat, make sure to do whatever you have to do to show love or support for this episode, and do whatever you got to do to make sure you don't miss an episode in the future. And click around the channel, of course, for any content or anything you want to watch in the meantime until something else comes out from the channel. And with that said, I see a comment here from Jayne, who says, hold on 1 second. I agree with the ladies about how Erika doesn't seem too empathetic for the victims. Erika's social media says different. Yeah, and I get that she can do whatever she wants. Like you said, with her social media, it's her social media. She has to pay the bills somehow, and she's not wrong for wanting to post and make money, but she has control over what captions she posts. She can post these sexy photos and put a different caption that's not poking the bear of these victims and poking the situation. She can, on her social media, Erika and Jayne, pretend like nothing's happening in her life, in the lawsuits and whatnot, and still post as Erika Jayne and create this character separate from Erika Girardi, who is the one implicated in all this. That's what I think. And so I think you're right on, Jayne, about the ladies being right about Erika not showing how she's empathetic towards the victims. And the way she says it in this part of the reunion, she's not, I don't want to say she should be like crying over it or acting over it, but she's angry. It almost seems like she's angry at the victims, not angry for the victims. It's almost as if Erika is angry that the victims came forward because then it screwed over Tom, which then screwed over her and had to upend her life. And this luxurious, over-the-top life she was living is now over because she has this now ex-husband who is accused of all these things. Basically, his life is over. And that is from him screwing over these clients who have come forward. And so, yeah, and Jayne, you said here, I want to feel for her, but it's very hard between IG and Twitter. Yeah, and I'm on right with you. The whole season, I've been trying to give her the benefit of the doubt and trying to hold on to a little bit of what if she is just completely swept up in this and just doesn't know what to think and what to say. And she's was told by her lawyer she shouldn't be on the show, but she knows the show is her only paycheck and how she's going to survive. And her posting on social media right now is how she's gaining an income, but the way she's doing it is wrong. She can't take it back, but if she's sorry, then she's looking like she's guilty and she wants to be innocent. And it's just, I can imagine it's probably not easy to deal with, but it doesn't mean that she's doing the right thing or that I agree with what she's saying. But I can tell you this from everything going on. I know there's a lot of talk that the ratings have been their best ever in the entire franchise, which that's not true. They basically maintained ratings from last season. They've actually dipped off a little bit. They increased the viewership throughout the season as more and more came out with Erika. But so anyone saying that their ratings are the best that they've ever been, I don't know where their source is. They're maintaining viewers, which is in this climate of TV is good because most people are losing viewers. But this season basically being centered all around Erika, she basically guaranteed her spot next season with a raise. And like we were talking about with the Dorit situation that just came up this week, I did see for sure that Kyle, Lisa Rinna, and Erika did go visit Dorit at her house. And so I'm assuming that means those three are probably back on the show. And I can assume that probably all the girls will be back. I think the only one I'm questioning really who won't be back is Crystal, but I don't know. I think she could still fit in, and maybe she needs another season to really jump in. And I would like to see Crystal and Sutton's friendship evolve on here, considering the beginning of this season was carried by them two in their clash of their new friendship. So Jayne says, Nick, that is a great point. Thank you. Yeah, and I just thought of that when you were talking about that, because I'm like, you know what? You're right. It's weird. You would think. So I'm thinking that the victims of Tom's wrongdoings are probably angry at him and Erika, but also really sad. Well, they've been through the sadness for the loss of their loved ones or the sicknesses that their loved ones have gone through, or whatever situation Tom was supposed to be representing them in. And now they're just angry towards him and her. You would think Erika would be sad for them first, because I'm trying to think of like, what's the cycle of grief? You're sad and then you're angry and then you're like in denial, or there's some other cycle there. And we haven't seen the sadness on Erika's part for the victims. We've seen her sad for her marriage ending. We've seen her sad for, I don't know, what else has she been sad for? But let me see what everyone's saying. I don't want to talk too much. I think I've already said enough on that. But Nicola Savine says, does her persona not giving a damn is different from her guilt? I'm trying to see what you're trying to say. Does her persona not giving a damn differentiate from her guilt? Yeah, the persona of Erika Jayne, I think the persona of Erika Jayne is a very convenient way to write off or dismiss things of Erika Girardi that she knows maybe aren't politically correct or socially acceptable, and she can say, "Oh, that's just that's Erika Jayne part of me," and kind of brush it off and as a scapegoat for any wrongdoings or whatnot. And then Erika Girardi can be the one with all the good traits that she wants to highlight, like she did with her book with Tom Girardi, where she said, "I made him look really good in that book," and blah 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 blah, kind of implying that she knew what was going on, even though she didn't say. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to see that. Let's see. Nicola says her tone-deaf conduct online as Erika Jayne doesn't imply she's guilty as Erika Girardi. No, I want to make sure I'm very clear on that, and that's a good point, Nicola, is that I'm not saying because Erika Jayne says something that Erika Girardi is guilty, but at some point, they are the same person. I'm trying to think, like, let's say, I'm trying to think who has a persona. Okay, Lady Gaga. Let's say Lady Gaga did something. Her real name is Stephanie Germanata or something like that, which when she's like writing her song, the credit for that, for the writer, is Stephanie Germanata, I'm pretty sure. But her name, her artist name is Lady Gaga. So if Lady Gaga did something on stage and something went wrong, or she got sued for something or whatever, it's still Stephanie Germanata, I think that's how you pronounce it, saying it out of her mouth, even though it's a facade of Lady Gaga, if that makes sense. So I would think, though, if she was really trying to be careful of not being painted as guilty, then she would either pause Erika Jayne or kind of filter out what Erika Jayne is saying and doing to not poke the bear. If she's really trying to not look guilty, then don't say it. Like, just not say it at all. Plead the fifth, if you will. That's a thing still. Remember, Andy Cohen is known for plead the fifth, even though I haven't seen much of that game recently, but just a thought. Jean says, Nicola, I can see that point, but at the same time, she needs to stop being Erika Jayne and start being Erika Girardi. That's kind of what I was saying. Yeah, so I think we're on the same page here. Yeah, and I think what we're saying in the chat here is kind of what I was just pointing out, which is blaming Erika Jayne for something just to kind of escape and whatnot is at some point in this situation is not working anymore, because yes, Erika Jayne is this, what she said is a campy, fun dance artist, but you can't use a campy, fun dance artist to poke fun at a situation where your ex-husband has put you in, really, where all these victims have been blamed. Maybe don't even mention that in your Erika Jayne posts. Just completely separate it. But on the other, I'm thinking of this again too. The problem is Erika Jayne, the company, the persona, the mogul, the empire, whatever you want to call it, was funded by what we've seen, Tom Girardi, allegedly with $20 million of his money that was allegedly stolen or taken or whatever you want to call it. So even though she wants to say Erika Jayne and Erika Girardi are separate, Erika Jayne is this persona and whatnot. And I think this is going to come up next week, because I heard him say that there's this $20 million question that everyone wants to know, which is, if your company is funded by Tom Girardi and he's in trouble, Erika Jayne is attached, whether you knew it or not. So it looks like in the comment section, we're going back and forth saying, Jean thinks people fell for Erika Jayne, but don't really know the real person, Erika Girardi. Yep, that's it. We're kind of saying that. So I'll let you guys continue that conversation in the chat. I know we're kind of going around this a lot, but if you have any other thoughts regarding the Dorit situation, if you've heard about it, if you think it's going to change the dynamics of season 12, maybe this will take a little bit of the heat off of Erika going into season 12, or at least fill in kind of the first part of the season until more of Erika's stuff comes out with court battles, because I'm sure Erika's going to be on for the next couple seasons at least when they're figuring all this out, because this is not going to end anytime soon, I don't think. So Um, Nicholas says, say Erika Jayne has no empathy, but also didn't know of the fraud. What animal do we have here? I think it's completely possible, Nicola, that Erika Jayne is kind of not empathetic towards the victims, but also didn't know of the fraud. I think it's completely possible. And that's kind of the part that's really confusing, is I think that's possible, but it doesn't really fit into what I would think or what's going on, if that makes sense. It's all conflicting. I don't know what's going on. Maybe that's the point. To be honest, maybe the point is to confuse us all so we don't know what to think. Because if it was very cut and dry and clear, we wouldn't be speculating. There wouldn't be a lot of attention around it. It'd just be kind of, this is what's going on. But with a lot of the confusion, it kind of creates more muddiness and maybe is making it a little easier for different interests to spin the story and to frame the story the way they want out of this mess and this mumble jumble stuff. So I don't know. Jean says, I feel so bad for Dorit. That is so scary. I think the next season will still focus on Erika Jayne, Erika Girardi. Yeah, I think it's going to focus on that too, but I think it's clear that Erika is the centerpiece, and the other girls, to stay on the show, they need a storyline of their own on top of that. So I don't know. That's definitely, whether the Dorit situation came about organically, the timing was just coincidental and whatnot. Luckily, everyone appears to be okay besides any emotional, traumatic things going on. I feel bad for the kids of most, because apparently the kids were home, and apparently Dorit, from what I read, might have been held up at gunpoint while these intruders were doing their thing and stealing stuff from her house. I did see a helicopter shot of her home and the window kind of broken out in the kids' I guess it's a playroom, but they used it as their schoolroom. And so scary stuff. And I'm sure that's going to be covered in the next season. Like I said, I saw cameras outside seeing a few of the cast members going over to see Dorit. Lots of paparazzi and a lot of things developing. But yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. Even if, no matter how you slice it, like I said before, it's scary stuff. And for a kid, I mean, that's the most traumatic thing ever. The worst thing you can think is a bad guy coming in. Speaking of bad guy, I just saw on the Bravo YouTube channel, they just uploaded a compilation of some of the kids of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills over the years, and they put in there Jagger, who is Dorit's son, a few seasons ago, calling Erika the bad guy at the table for Dorit's birthday. Remember when he came in on with a little white suit and a balloon for his mom? So I thought that was pretty interesting timing and a great reminder that maybe kids were feeling some instinct, or it just was coincidence. I don't know. He did also call Lisa Vanderpump the bad guy in that scene too, so I don't know. But let's see what everyone is saying. So it looks like Nicola asked, did she mention the victims in her Instagram posts? Nicola says, not that I haven't seen anything either. And yeah, I think what you're saying, Jean, is she probably was advised not to make a comment by her lawyers. But the problem is, some of the things that we've seen on her Instagram are not directly saying something about the situation, but it's implied and it's pretty close to what is going on, and it's poking it. Like we said, it's not hard to decipher what she's talking about. And if she really said that and she had no idea it was talking about that, then maybe she's not as smart as we thought. Or she has someone else running her Instagram, and maybe we should fire that person. Nicola says, exactly, it's confusing. Great TV, though. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I see some questions going back and forth between you guys in the comments, but regarding the public relations advice, what I want to remind everybody what happened in the first part of this reunion, which was Erika saying her lawyers advised her not to go on the show, but she did anyway. But other things, she has taken her advice from her lawyer on what things she can and can't say. So I think questions in the chat about taking a position if she got great PR if she didn't get great PR advice or whatnot, I think she's just taking things she feels like doing and things she doesn't at this point, and which is why I think it's also confusing, because she's saying, I can say all this stuff, but I can't say this stuff. But some of the things she can and can't say kind of overlap. And so it's like, why did you choose to say that, not this? It's like all the things kind of are confusing. Jayne says, did I hear right during the reunion that Erika and Tom are still talking? So from what I saw in the preview for the next episode, which is coming out on Wednesday, which we will be going live on Thursday, I want to remind everybody. Thursday night at this time, 6 p.m., I'll be doing the last part. I've been doing Sunday the last 2 weeks, but this coming week I'll be doing it on Thursday. I heard her say that he still calls her. And I think this is where she's going to slip up and saying, I told him, and then pause and be like, damn it, I didn't mean to say that. Because it's kind of that similar thing she was saying in La Quinta, where she was sharing how he still calls her, and she had to call his lawyer to tell, or she had to tell her lawyer to tell his lawyer to stop calling her. And he leaves messages and all this kind of stuff. And that was the whole Garcelle situation in La Quinta, where she brought it up to the group, and that's when Erika kind of broke down. And then that was when the LA Times article came out, I believe, the next day. So that was kind of what was going on. Let's see. Dorit security was done by Teddy's husband company. Kyle used him too and got robbed. Also, PK had money owing, and they were robbed the first day of shooting the next season. Yeah. That adds to more. I did see that today, saying that Teddy's husband also was implicated today in something that Jen Shaw from Salt Lake City was implicated with, something with stealing or scamming elderly people. Not sure if it has to do with his security system, but I do remember Teddy's husband being the one that, I don't know if he put in the security system for Kyle, or they put the security system in for Kyle after. No, it was in, but it wasn't working yet. I think that's what happened with Kyle was she used his security system, but they hadn't finished the job or whatever. And then when they were out of town, someone came in and broke in and somehow knew that their security wasn't working. So that's why I'm indicating, or I'm thinking that this is an inside job and not just some random break-in. This is an organized crime thing for a high-profile house featured on a show where they share about all the fancy things that they own. So definitely something's going on. And yeah, I think it is convenient too that it happened the hours after the reunion part where they're bragging about how much stuff they own and how expensive it is. And right when allegedly they have started filming during the last few weeks, or they're about to start filming, maybe it's the first day, like you said. I knew they were starting either last week or sometime this week, because I know last year at this time was when they went to Tahoe right before Election Day, which is the first week of November. So it makes sense and it adds up, and it looks like they're starting earlier from what I've been reading, because they want to get ahead of all these storylines coming out with Erika and make sure to get it on camera like they did last season to kind of get those candid reactions as we saw this season. Jayne says, knowing Erika still talks with Tom makes me suspicious. If I was her attorney, I would tell her to cut off all communication with him. Yeah, and I'm wondering about this too. Why haven't you blocked his number? Because you're only supposed to be communicating between your lawyer and his lawyer. The easiest way for this to happen is for your number to be blocked, or his number to be blocked. But then again, you can just get new numbers and keep doing it. But or change your number. And considering she seems to think all of the people around her have kind of run away, just give the new number to the people you actually care about and want to be around, and then leave your old number. Just kind of put the phone somewhere else and don't really check it. I don't know. Nicola says insurance fraud. Insurance as in breaking into home. Yeah, wouldn't shock me. Yeah, I think that's why I go back and forth on feeling bad for speculating that this whole thing with Dorit was planted or made up or whatnot for the show or for a storyline or for whatever, for insurance money, whatever it is. And not feeling bad about it, because we've seen it happen before. And when we're dealing with people who want to be in the limelight, we see how, especially with the Erika situation, how fraudulent some people's lives are and how fake everything is and how much stuff is borrowed. And like it was alleged in the Erika situation, which was stealing from Peter to pay Paul and all this stuff, I would not be surprised. And knowing how open Dorit and her husband have been about being involved in lawsuits in the past, and PK being open about how he lost billions in real estate, even though he's sharing that. But apparently, from what I've heard, Mauricio is hiring PK to run his agency office in London, even though he knows that Dorit or PK lost billions in real estate during, I guess, the crash of 2008. So I don't know. But while we're all typing still, just want to remind you, like I said earlier, if you're still here and you want to give a thumbs up, or if you're on Rumble or you're listening on a podcast platform, to do whatever you got to do to show love for the episode, and make sure to either subscribe or do whatever you have to do to make sure you don't miss another episode. And I want to remind you also, in the description box of this episode, there is my website, which if you click on the website, you can sign up for my free email list where you get, kind of in case you missed it, reminders of episodes you might have missed for that week or the last couple of weeks, and links to them and kind of links to all my social media platforms through there. Make sure you click the confirmation email on the email, because it's a 2-step sign up to make sure you're a real person, not a robot. So if you want to do that, and of course you can click around the channel for more until the next time we are together. And if no one has any other thoughts, I'll give you a few seconds. Then we will wrap up here. Let me take a sip of water and mute as you guys are typing. I was muted. Jayne says, Erika will probably go down the Teresa route. Erika might get in trouble because of the taxes she signed every year. Yeah, and that's the thing that actually was the most alarming, or one of the more alarming things this season, was the women kind of just poo-pooing. Thank you, Jayne. Hopefully you guys will come back a few more seasons. I'm going to be planning on doing also Real Housewives of Orange County when that comes back, because I'm actually from that area and I kind of know that deal a little more, and there's some interesting things happening with that reboot of that franchise. And of course I'll be covering Beverly Hills next season. It looks like they're going to turn around pretty quick on that, because we've already gone like 6 months of this one airing, almost 7 I think, so that'll be back pretty soon. But thing that was very concerning, and I didn't know if this, I mean, maybe this is more common than I think. I haven't been married, so I don't know, but the idea that Lisa Rinna, and I think Sutton, and obviously Erika, and probably Crystal too, saying that they just sign whatever their husbands put in front of them and don't really read it. And like I said, I haven't been married, but I think what's going on here is maybe cause for concern, and maybe should have us all pausing about signing contracts and making sure we read everything. I know in my personal life, I have a few contracts that I was dealing with recently, and I wanted to get out of some of them. And so I made sure to read the fine print on how to get out of this contract and what were the terms of that. And so, and the another party in that was kind of, that I was in it with, they weren't really doing that. And I was kind of making sure I understood the terms of this contract so I could get out of it clean and not have any problems like this. And so I think this is a good lesson out of anything we take away from this season. Even though people think it's mindless TV and it's kind of worthless and whatnot, we can take the lessons away from this season of read your contracts, even if you're married to someone that you trust. What other lessons are we going to learn? I guess that's the main one. But also, like, if there's red flags, talk about it and whatnot. I don't know. But, yeah. Thank you, Jayne. Thank you, Nicola, for being here, and Jayne, appreciate it. I am not on Twitter. So out of all the main social medias, I'm on YouTube. I am on Rumble, which is kind of a YouTube alternative, just in case something happens on YouTube. All my content videos uploaded there. And then on podcasting platforms. If you want to know exactly the links to those, it's my name, the same everywhere. Long story about why I'm not on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, but YouTube is the main platform, and then I re-upload to other audio and video platforms. So that is what it is. So check the community tab for Twitter, like posts and notifications on YouTube. And yeah, so if you want to sign up for the free email list, that's a great way to do it as well in the description. If you have any trouble with that, comment or email the email nick.zangl@nickzangl.com, and you can reach me directly there as well. Jean says, I've been married for 25 years and I never signed anything without reading it, but I don't have the money they have, LOL. And that's true. I mean, yeah, I can imagine it's different when you have a lot of money. And if you're in a marriage, you're not saying you're in it for the money, but you know there's a dynamic there where one person is clearly a breadwinner over another. And I have been seeing too, Dana Wilkie, who, if you remember from season 2, I think, who had the $25,000 sunglasses. She was just a friend of the show. She has an actual channel that does recaps as well and talks about the drama and has the inside scoop on a lot of these women. She was sharing what Sutton Stracke, what she made basically from her divorce, and she's very well off. She did the smart thing in her marriage, meaning hiring a good divorce lawyer and getting half of what she's entitled to in the state of California. And so that is a situation where it seems that she, quote unquote, blindly signed based on her husband or from her husband's request, and it actually worked out fine in her favor. So it looks like it just depends on the person. And she's the one that said she didn't even know she owned part of a minor league baseball team, which, speaking of that, I think the baseball team she owned was a minor league team. I think it was the Augusta Green Jackets, I think it was, who are actually a minor league baseball team for the Atlanta Braves, who are playing in the World Series right now, who I was going to, after we wrap up here, I'm going to watch the game. I think it's still going on. I could probably check the score, but they're about to win the World Series, so she's doing pretty good. And I know she has like half of all these companies. She's half owner of all these things. She owns part of his $20 million life insurance policy and all these stocks and cash and all this other stuff. So Sutton is doing well and she's not dumb. So that's why I respect Sutton a lot, and her just picking up on things that we have about things just not adding up. But Jean says, I want to be Sutton's best friend, LOL. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hang out with her. I mean, I'm not a girl, so maybe she wouldn't want to be my best friend, but it'd be interesting, definitely. So I think I'm going to, let's see, Jean. Nick, I'm in the South Bay in Los Angeles. Awesome. Yeah, I'm in California. I don't say exactly where I am just to be safe, but I am in California. Born, raised, schooled, live, work, all the things in California. So that's why I'm going to focus on the 2 California franchises of the Real Housewives and OC and Beverly Hills for now, because they're the ones I'm most interested in. They're kind of in our area. So that's why I like these ones the most. And some of the other franchises I watch, but I don't really talk about on the channel that much. So with that said, if we don't have any other comments or topics, I hope everyone is having a happy and safe Halloween if you celebrate, or if it's still early in your area. It's only 7 here. And hopefully you have a great rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you during the week. I'm bringing back my news live chats this week, which cover kind of other news outside of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, meaning pop culture, some politics sometimes. Of course, I try to do it in a palatable way, and some internet culture stuff. So stay tuned for that. If you don't want to watch that, of course, you don't have to, but I will be back on Thursday also for the last part of the reunion recap and react live, where I would take your chats just like we did today. And you'll be seeing some more shorts, YouTube shorts, show up in your subscription feed so I can catch up before the last part of the reunion. And with that said, I think that's all I've said of other things a few times. And thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye.